Hello, and welcome to another webinar with Natural Products Canada. I'm Sue Quillen. Today, we're focusing on the new labeling changes for natural health products that are part of Health Canada's revisions for this product segment. We're very fortunate to have Kylie Paul, President and CEO of Natural SciReg, to provide her insights today. And we have a lot to cover, so I'm just going to hand it straight over to Kylie.
Thank you so much, Sue, and thank you to Natural Products Canada for inviting me to speak on regulatory in Canada. super fun topic, and we are going to dive right in. So the self-care proposal was introduced in 2016 to kind of the shock of the industry, where Health Canada decided that they wanted to start an umbrella category called self-care products, which includes natural health products, OTC, non-prescription drugs, and cosmetics in Canada. Their initial proposal was to create new regulations and have different categories based on the risk of the products to introduce a new way to get to market for this category of products, and the label that they've given them is self-care products. Now, part of these regulations, they've been going back and forth, and nothing has yet to be finalized or even close to be finalized as far as regulations go. But a portion of this proposal was changes to the labeling standards for natural health products. So the three main categories that they wanted to introduce to revise the regulations for labeling for natural health products are introducing a facts table to standardize the format for the information presented, as opposed to right now where there is mandatory information required on all packaging for natural health products. However, there is no standardized format into representing this information on the package. Number two, modernized contact information for reporting any problems as far as getting a hold of the manufacturer or the company license holder of the product. And number three, the use of plain language attributes, simple sentences, bullet forms, and to eliminate a lot of the industry jargon or information that might not be pertinent to the consumer. So the way that Health Canada proposed introducing this large regulatory framework shift was in phases, they called them. So phase one was to be the labeling of the natural health products, revising the standards, and introducing the new regulations for natural health product labeling. Phase two was amending the food and drug regulations to introduce risk-based approach to regulatory oversight for the non-prescription drugs. And phase three, I apologize, beginning in 2020, the regulatory amendments to address evidence standards for similar health claims. So the phase three was really to reduce discrepancies and doubling of evidence standards. So similar to the Health Canada monographs that are available right now, they wanted a more standardized approach for class 3 type application products. We're focusing on phase one, and any of you that are CHFA members would have received this email on Monday from our dear friend Helen Long. So she was on a call with NHPD on November 22nd and was informed that the introduction of the plain language labeling, which we have all been waiting for, which was proposed to be released in fall 2018, has now been pushed to the spring of 2019, which means that we are still in limbo as far as the specifics of the regulations and when they're going to be implemented, when we're going to receive the official Health Canada documentation from them, has been pushed back again. So we can't expect anything. I was hoping to have this webinar, we would have the new regulations and we could go over specifics. However, the regulations have been pushed to spring of 2019 for implementation purposes. So what's next? NHP has decided to skip phase one and focus on phase two of their regulation proposal, which has the risk-based approach for the oversight of non-prescription drugs. So this framework may be applied to NHPs later. However, we can't anticipate any of this new regulation framework into application until I would anticipate late 2019 and not considered for NHPs until 2020. However, based on the proposal, we will be going over what you need to know as far as the labeling changes specifics that are going to happen. So as previously mentioned under the self-care proposal, NHPD's ideal idea for these regulatory changes was to ensure easier consumable information for the consumer at a consumer level, so they could easily compare products and understand what was in the product they were looking at and what was the difference between products. The products that are exempted from these regulations are going to be any cosmetics for a specific cosmetic purpose, such as altering the appearance or any aesthetic claims. They would not be included in the new labeling regulations. So they're not going to be required to have a facts table on their labeling. The cosmetic regulation labeling is going to stick into effect as of right now. So the products facts table. This is going to, similar to the nutrition facts table on food and the Canadian drug facts table on prescription drugs. It's going to have the product identification, ingredients, the use, any warnings. So the idea is to support decision-making for the consumer, be consistent in formatting across all products and brands, and have the same format. So there's going to be a fixed title for the product facts. And again, all of this is under the proposal at the moment. So none of these specific details have been confirmed under the regulations that have now been pushed to the spring of 2019. Therefore, all this wording may be altered depending on industry feedback and what NHPD decides to include in their specific titles and specific wording for the labeling regulations. So the product facts table, that specific title may change. This is under their proposal at the moment, but keep in mind that may be what they're going to push as the title for this. Similar to supplement facts tables in the US, ours are proposed to be called product fact tables. Warnings and other risk statements will be shorter and more understandable for the consumer. Standardized format is going to be required, so minimum font sizes, specific fonts, and spacing, lines, all of that is currently required under the Canadian drug facts tables are going to be introduced to natural health products. There's going to be a little bit more flexibility with the inner and outer labels, whereas outer labels will only contain point of selection information as opposed to point of selection and point of use information. So this is the definition of the point of selection versus point of use. So point of selection at the point of purchase is any warnings are going to be required that will affect a consumer's ability to purchase the product or not. So do not use, for example, do not use if you are pregnant. That is going to be required as a point of selection warning versus a point of use, more information type warning. The other warnings under the point of use will not necessarily be required on the label, outer or inner. Health Canada is considering having a QR code or URL link. Also, package inserts or leaflets are possibilities depending on the type of package that would have the entire warning selection available. So these are all, again, this is all under the proposal. There's no regulations set in stone as of yet. These are all things that Health Canada has been considering. As of right now, all warnings according to your NPN license are required on the label. So this is something that may change. Also, the wording is pretty strict right now as far as labeling for NHPs for the warnings, and they're gonna kind of loosen that up a little bit with the introduction of the facts table. So here's an example of two different formats that may be introduced. I anticipate they'll keep a very similar format. As previously mentioned, the product facts specific title may change depending on Health Canada's feedback on this particular wording. It may change to NHP facts. It may change to supplement facts, like it's currently seen in the US. However, as per their proposal, this is the most recent version of the proposed facts table. So the abbreviated version that we can see on the left is what would be absolutely expected on the outer label of an NHP, where you have the website of the company that's responsible and the license holder, the medicinal ingredient listing, any point of selection or point of purchase warnings that would be required that were under the previous examples, such as do not use if you are pregnant, any do not use statements, or ask a doctor or healthcare practitioner before use if statements will be required on the label, directions of use, non-medicinal ingredients, and then an abbreviated questions or contact information box there. And then the full product facts table, which is on the right, will be expected on the label extension. So if there's a product leaflet, or as previously mentioned, Health Canada is considering a link to a website or a QR code, insert leaflet, some type of extension of the label would require all the information that is currently under the regulations for labeling, but into this new format. As of Saturday, which is a weird day for Health Canada to introduce regulations, there are certain changes for non-prescription drugs. So I'm just going to do a very brief overview of this. And if you have any specific questions with regards to OTC, please feel free to reach out to me. I wanted to give the majority of the time in the overview to the natural health product regulations, but I did want to mention for any of you who may have over-the-counter prescription drugs or Category 4 products that there are also changes applicable as of this week for this category of products. So as of December 1st, any product except for a Category 4, which is considered an NHP, or a Category 1 self-care product, which is an ambiguous term at the moment. Health Canada has not released or given a description as of yet on the what a Category 1 self-care product is, because the regulations have not been released yet. Where any information that is removed from the Canadian Drug Facts table must appear on the package insert. So what they're introducing here is flexibilities to the non-prescription drug labeling panels. So currently in effect is the Canadian Drug Facts table, where you see on all the prescription drugs and non-prescription over-the-counter drugs at the moment, where it's a similar format to the product facts table that we just saw, but they require a little bit more information and a little bit different formatting. So what they're proposing here are flexibilities to that format, and they have 4 levels of changes. So what we see, what the levels mean is just the type of change that you may want to introduce to your labeling. So you, for example, you can move uses to the principal display panel instead of under the Canadian Drug Facts table. You are now allowed to use condensed font as per level 2. You're allowed to move the storage information and inactive ingredients from the table. However, it must be present on a label or insert, another outer label extension, as mentioned in the proposal for the NHP labeling changes. And then the point of use warning can also be moved to an outer panel or a leaflet or tag, which is what we discussed, not a point of purchase where there's safety concerns for the consumer. However, a point of use warning that doesn't immediately concern safety may be moved to another panel, similar to what was described under the NHP labeling proposal. So I just wanted to briefly mention that because this is in effect as of right. Well, the end of this week is going to be in effect. And like I mentioned, if you have any questions about the prescription drug labeling regulations, you can feel free to reach out. So unfortunately, that's all the specific information that has been released to date because of the new push to spring of 2019 for the labeling regulations to be released. However, there are several factors for you to consider because this is not an endpoint for the labeling regulations. They have been pushed back, but they will still be going to be coming into effect at a later date. So the regulations are now proposed to be released in the spring of 2019. They will likely be finalized by the end of 2019, and then you're going to look at revising all of your labeling by the end of 2020. So I am ready to take questions, Sue, if you had any.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you. And I appreciate the challenge with the shifting landscape there and you know, not being able to get any more access to anything more concrete, except for the fact that now we know it's not going to be happening till spring, which is new information. I don't have any questions via chat, but now that we are finished, maybe, oh, I see one coming in. Okay, people are asking if they can get access to the presentation because they had some issues, and absolutely, we will be putting this up online later. I did have a question that came in earlier. Perhaps, Kylie, you'll remember the question that came in, I think, late last night or this morning, an advanced question.
Yes. Yeah, I did receive that. So that was a specific question if someone might be able to use the specific health claim may help with relief of diarrhea, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm. Or management, it said help.
Management, okay. So there are several ingredients right now that are monographed that have a traditional use claim for to help relieve diarrhea. So there's bilberry, there's ground ivy, there's astragalus, there's avens, and Prunella vulgaris that have a traditional claim to help relieve diarrhea. It would depend, that's a very specific question. So it would depend on what ingredient they were using and at what dose. If that person wanted to email me separately, they can feel free and I can do a quick reg analysis on their product and let them know what claims are available. Of course, if they had any clinical evidence or published research to support their product that it does relieve diarrhea, then it would be considered a class 3 application to Health Canada, at which point it's up to their discretion if your evidence is sufficient to support that health claim.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so, yes, again, if you have a specific question like that, it is probably best to ask Kylie directly about your specific product, but that's good. Okay, a couple more questions. We have one, is the feedback from industry accessible publicly?
Ooh, great question. So they released a survey, a cost-benefit analysis survey for the improved labeling of natural health products. That was closed on May 30th, and they have yet to release a what we heard document on it. So normally what happens is when Health Canada does these surveys or consultation webinars or something like that, they analyze all the feedback that comes in and then release kind of a PR statement or document that addresses all of the industry's concerns. And it is very unusual for those documents to be this late. Normally they're released within a couple months after the surveys have been closed. However, this one is yet to be released. I'll keep Sue updated on if, like, we're checking the site many, I don't even know how many times a day, probably 100, to see if they're releasing any new documents. So that particular one has not been released. As you can see from Helen's email, though, there has been huge industry kickback from these proposed regulations, and it has been moved back. However, they're not going to reconsider the regulations at this point.
Okay, great. Okay, one more question. Will there be a buffer period that products have to change their labels once these regulation changes take place?
Yes, absolutely. So you have kind of a year to comply with the regulations, which means like get your amendments into Health Canada and that kind of thing, and show that you're moving forward in the direction of new labels. I believe the survey proposal listed 4 years to have the new labeling on your packaging, and the category, the non-prescription drug new regulations, I believe they gave them seven years, which seems like a crazy long time, to adhere to the new regulations. But I guess it depends on your expiry date of your products, etc., label runs, all that kind of stuff. But as of right now, it's 1 year to show that you're going to comply with the regulations, and then 4 years of implementation at retail level.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Because I don't see any more in the chat room. It looks like it. Looks like that might be it. So Kylie, I guess bottom line is still a little bit undetermined. If people have specific questions about their particular product, they can talk to you and see if you have any insights on as to how they should proceed. Anything else that you'd like to leave us with before we close things out?
Absolutely. Anyone's more than welcome to reach out to us anytime with questions. My team is ready to answer. We are checking out all the Health Canada updates, as I mentioned, several times a day. I will post to LinkedIn normally of any Health Canada updates, and I can tag Sue in any of those posts. Just want to say, keep an eye out and be mindful of these upcoming changes, because they are pretty radical to your packaging. So keep in mind when you're thinking about like any box changes or bottling changes or things like that, that you are going to now have to accommodate for a facts table, as opposed to right now where the information is a little bit more flexibility as far as spacing goes on your product labeling. When you introduce a box, it may complicate your packaging a little bit depending on what size of bottle or box you're using. So although this seems like it might still be a far way away, I would still definitely take it into consideration with any new product launches that you're coming up with, or any new concept ideas for new products, because it will have an impact on your packaging, and your graphic designer may not be super happy with you.
Yes. Okay. Well, that is
definitely give them an update.
Yeah, because it takes a while to kind of make sure that you get the right iteration of those things onto your product, for sure. Okay, well, that is excellent. Thank you so much for this. And we'll make sure that we have Kylie's information posted along with the recording of this, so you'll be able to go through basically here and see everything again, and have the contact information for Kylie for any extra questions that you have. So for now, thanks very much for being here, all of you, and have a great day.
Thank you.